settle in, turn down the lights, and if you'd like to hear more true horror every week, tap the like button and leave a comment. Now, let's begin. I worked as a 911 dispatcher for a small county in the Midwest for about 5 years. It wasn't exactly a thrilling job most nights, just a lot of noise complaints, minor accidents, domestic disputes, the usual. But one call has stuck with me ever since. It started on a Wednesday night. It was around 2:30 a.m., that dead hour when things usually go quiet. My coworker had stepped out for a smoke break, and I was the only one in the room when the line lit up. I answered like always. 911, what's your emergency? There was static at first, faint but constant. Then I heard a woman's voice. She was whispering, like she was trying not to be heard.
"Please help me,"
she said.
"He's in the house."
I straightened up in my chair immediately. "Ma'am, can you tell me your address?" There was a pause. I could hear her breathing.
"He's coming up the stairs,"
she whispered.
"Please hurry."
My stomach dropped. I repeated my question a little louder this time. "Ma'am, what's your address?" And then, faintly, I heard her say, 1437 Elmside. After that, the line went dead. I dispatched officers right away, gave them the address and the details. They arrived within minutes. The radio crackled a few times as they did their sweep, and then one of them came back over the channel saying, "Dispatch, the residence at 1437 Elmside. It's not standing. It's a total loss." I asked what he meant. He told me the house had burned down months ago, completely destroyed in a fire that took the lives of a woman and her husband. I double-checked the address, thinking maybe I heard it wrong, but I hadn't. It matched exactly what she had told me. I was shaken, sure, but I told myself there had to be some kind of mistake. It didn't make sense, but I moved on. We get weird stuff like that sometimes. Pocket dials, interference, prank calls. But then it happened again. 2 nights later, around the same time, that same number popped up. Same caller ID, same static, same woman.
"Please help me. He's in the house."
I asked for her name, tried to keep my voice calm, but it was identical to the previous call down to every word. It was like the same call was repeating itself. I sent officers again, even though I knew what they'd find. The house was still nothing but a burned-out shell. The property had been fenced off. No way anyone was in there. The next morning, I talked to my supervisor about it. He looked uneasy but told me to log it as a system anomaly. The number, he said, had been disconnected months ago after the fire. I remember thinking maybe someone had hacked into our system, like a prank or some weird experiment. But deep down, I didn't really believe that. A week went by. I tried to put it out of my mind, but then one night around 2:30 again, it came through. Same number, same voice. However, this time I didn't say anything right away. I just listened. It started the same way. First static, followed by the woman saying,
"Please help me."
This time there was a new sound in the background. Heavy stomps, creaking boards, then a slam, like a door closing. The hair on my arm stood up.
"He's in the house,"
she whispered. I wanted to hang up, but I didn't. I sat there with my heart pounding until the line cut out. I checked the timestamp, saved the recording, and marked it for review. The next day, I dug into the records for that address. The fire report said it had started in the early morning hours around 3 a.m. The cause was listed as arson. The husband was found near the doorway. The wife was found upstairs near the phone. She had been trying to call for help, That detail stuck with me. I started dreading that hour. Every night when the clock hit 2:20, I'd start staring at the screen, waiting. Most nights nothing came through, but every few days the line would light up again. Same number, same voice. Sometimes the call was shorter, sometimes longer. Once, she didn't speak at all. I just heard movement and something that sounded like a faint sob. I finally asked one of the tech guys to trace the signal manually. He said the line was bouncing, rerouting through old infrastructure. In plain English, it was coming from nowhere specific, like the system was replaying data that didn't exist anymore. He couldn't explain how. After a few weeks, the calls stopped completely. Part of me was relieved, part of me wasn't. It felt wrong that they just ended. One night, months later, I was working an overnight shift again. Everything was quiet. I leaned back in my chair when I heard static crackle softly through my headset. It wasn't from a call, just noise on the line. And then I heard the same voice that had been calling me for months.
Please help me.
I jumped and yanked the headset off. The line wasn't active. There was nothing on the board. No incoming call, no recording. I checked the phone log. No entry, no timestamp. I quit the job about a year later. I often think about it. If that woman is somehow trapped, unable to move on. It set a permanent mark on me. I still remember the number by heart to this day. I was 17 when this happened. It was early summer in 2009, school had just ended, and I had this habit of staying out way too late. I'd been hanging out at a friend's house a few blocks away. We'd stayed up playing games, eating junk food, and just wasting time like teenagers do. I didn't even realize how late it had gotten until I checked my phone. 3:04 a.m. I didn't want to call my parents for a ride and deal with the lecture, so I decided to walk. The air was still warm from the day, but that eerie nighttime quiet had set in. No cars, no people. On my way home, I passed a small playground near the elementary school. It was a place I used to hang out at when I was younger. It looked empty, just that typical setup with a jungle gym, a couple of slides, and a set of swings on a metal frame. I don't know why, but I decided to stop. Maybe it was the nostalgia, or maybe I just wanted to clear my head. Either way, I walked through the gate and sat down on one of the swings. I wasn't thinking about anything deep, just letting my legs rock slightly back and forth, zoning out. My neighborhood always felt safe, so I didn't really feel nervous. That changed when I noticed the swing next to me start to move. Just a little sway like a breeze had passed through. But there was no wind, not even a breeze. I actually stopped moving to make sure I wasn't imagining it. The swing kept going back and forth a little harder each time. I told myself it was probably just leftover momentum, or maybe the frame shifting from my own movement had started it. That made sense. But after another few seconds, it picked up. That was when I stood up. I gave it one last glance. Maybe I was just tired. Either way, I started heading toward the gate. I'd taken maybe 10 steps when the gate suddenly slammed shut. I had left it open. It wasn't one of those gates with a latch or spring that automatically closes. You had to push it. But now it had shut completely. Hard enough that it echoed across the empty street. There was no wind, nothing else around that could have pushed it. I turned around and saw that the swing was now swinging violently, almost like someone was on it, pumping their legs, leaning into it. But there was no one there. At that point, my nerves took over. I turned back and jogged to the gate, tried to open it, but it was locked. It was just one of those basic chain-link playground gates. No padlock, just a simple latch on the inside. But no matter how hard I pulled, it wouldn't budge. It was like something had jammed it. That's when I made the decision to climb the fence. It wasn't that tall, maybe 5 feet, and I figured it'd be easy enough to hop over and get the hell out of there. I got one leg over, then the other, halfway straddling the top. And that's when I felt something grab my hoodie from behind and yank. I lost my balance and fell backwards, landing hard on my back in the bark chips. I scrambled up immediately and spun around. No one. Not a soul. Just that swing, still creaking back and forth, slowing down now. I didn't even try the fence again. I just sprinted back to the gate and threw my weight into it, hitting it with my shoulder over and over. On the 5th hit, it finally gave. I don't know why I stopped running when I did, maybe 50 or 60 feet down the road. Something in me told me to look back, just to make sure. So I did. And standing just inside the playground fence was a girl. She couldn't have been older than 12. She was small, maybe 4.5 feet tall, wearing light-colored pajamas or a dress. I couldn't tell in the dark. But the weirdest thing? She was just standing there looking at me. I couldn't see her face clearly. Her hair was dark and long, hanging straight down. She didn't say anything. She just raised one hand and waved, like we knew each other. I didn't wave back. My legs kicked in before my brain did, and I ran all the way home without looking back again. When I got to my front porch, I had to sit there for a few minutes before I could get my key in the door, because my hands were shaking so bad. I didn't sleep at all that night. I still don't know what happened. I've told a few people, and they always try to explain it away. Maybe it was just a kid messing around. Maybe someone locked the gate as a prank. Maybe I panicked. Maybe. But I'll tell you what I do know. There was no one else around when I walked into that playground. And a 12-year-old girl being out at 3 a.m., standing silently in the shadows, waving without saying a word. That's not normal. That's something I'll never forget. I wanted to share something that happened a few years ago. I've never really talked about it outside my family, but it still messes with me. It was the 4th of July. I was 17. In my family, we never did big celebrations or anything. No fireworks in the driveway, no loud cookouts. My dad would just grill burgers. We'd sit outside with lemonade and watch the neighbors' fireworks from our porch. It wasn't exciting, but it was kind of nice. Low-key. Predictable. That night was the same as always. We ate, watched the sky light up from a few blocks over, and around 10:30, things started winding down. My little sister got tired and went inside, and not long after, so did my mom. I hung out for a bit longer with my dad, then went up to my room. I cracked my window open and sat on the edge of my bed, scrolling on my phone, listening to the last few distant pops from leftover fireworks. Then, I saw something, just out of the corner of my eye. Movement, outside my window. I looked up. There was someone standing on our roof. At first I thought I was seeing things. It was dark, no moon, no porch lights. But it was a silhouette. A man, definitely. Tall. He was maybe 6 feet from my window, just standing there, facing me. I couldn't see his face, but somehow I knew he was staring right at me. I felt paralyzed. I kept thinking, there's no way. I live in a 1-story house. There's no way someone could just be standing there. But then he tilted his head in a creepy, real slow way. That broke whatever spell I was under. I jumped back, grabbed my phone, and ran to my parents' room. I tried to sound calm, but my voice was shaking. "Dad, someone's on the roof." He was half asleep, but he sat up quick. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I saw him, right outside my window." That got him moving. He threw on a t-shirt, grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand, and followed me back to my room. I was hoping the guy would be gone. I mean, who wants to actually be right about something like that? The roof was empty. Dad shined the flashlight across the shingles, but there was nothing there. "There is no one there, buddy. You probably just saw your reflection," he said, but I could tell he didn't fully believe it, as I've never said anything like this to him before. "I'm telling you, he was right there," I said. Still, he stepped out onto the roof barefoot, which was kind of badass and stupid at the same time, checked around, even walked the length of it. Nothing. Not a single sound. No footprints. No loose shingles. Nothing disturbed. He checked the backyard too. All quiet and locked up. Eventually, he said, it was probably a squirrel or something, and went back to bed. I didn't argue. But squirrels don't have the silhouette of a man. I locked the window, pulled the blinds shut, and tried to forget about it. I laid in bed for hours, wide awake, flinching at every creak in the walls. It was probably around 2 a.m. when I started drifting off. Then I heard footsteps, right above my room, pacing, slowly across the roof, back and forth, back and forth. I just stared up at the ceiling, barely breathing. Then it stopped. Silence. Until I heard a voice. It was low, raspy. A man's voice right outside my window, just on the other side of the glass. You saw me. I was filled with adrenaline. I just laid there with my heart pounding, doubting myself if I'd really heard it. I eventually snapped out of it and ran out in the hallway screaming for my dad again. He didn't ask questions this time. He saw my face and went into full-on dad mode. He checked everything. Under the bed, behind the curtains, even opened the window and stepped back out onto the roof. Nothing. Not even a mark. The next morning, I was still jumpy. I had barely slept. I went outside to check for myself, and that's when I saw something weird. On the outside of my window, drawn into the layer of dust on the glass, was a handprint. Not like a palm pressed flat. This looked smeared, like long fingers, and maybe a nose? Like someone had leaned in real close just to watch. And here's the thing. There's nothing to really stand on the outside of that window. No balcony or ladder. Ever since that night, I don't sleep in that room on the 4th of July. I crash on the couch or stay with friends because I still think about that voice and what it said.